Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Your Next Film. I am your host, Zachary Koch.
I'm your host, Mateo Guthrie.
And this is a podcast where we talk about indie filmmaking and whatever else we feel like rambling about.
And movies.
And movies more and more. I'm really excited about our, we'll get into it later, but this new film homework segment that we've got going on.
Making us watch movies finally.
Yes, and I, happy to say, I did my film homework for this week. Did you do your film homework?
I also did my film homework.
Very nice.
Not hard for me, I'll be honest.
If you didn't watch last episode, our film homework for this episode was to watch Ridley Scott's The Last Duel, which was a film 2021.
I believe it was supposed to come out 2020 and then got postponed.
So 2021.
Yeah, so like a 21 or maybe 22.
We'll get into it in a little bit, but I really enjoyed that movie. I had no expectations going into it. I hadn't seen the trailers. I didn't even know what the genre was really. I saw it was maybe kind of medieval, but I had no idea what it was about. And I think I mentioned this in our last episode, but I love watching movies blind. My enjoyment just goes through the roof.
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
Oh, I haven't even seen the new Wes Anderson trailer. I kind of know what the movie's about, but I'm like, Wes Anderson sort of spy movie. That's all I need to know.
Do you know when that comes out?
I don't even know when it comes out. It'll land in theaters and I'll be there. I'll just teleport into a seat.
Well, that'll have to be our film homework whenever that does come out, which is exciting.
Well, Zach, other than film homework, what's new with you?
Not a whole lot. I'm trying to get back into running. That's basically it. I bought a bunch of new filmmaking equipment, not cameras this time, I swear to God.
Whoa.
I sold one of my two Panasonic cameras because I never used it. I thought I would use it for multicam shoots. I don't do multicam shoots, so I sold one of them, got a good amount of money, and bought lights and grip gear, which is, I think, very mature.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
So you guys can't see it, but I've got a 2-stop diffusion flag here. I've got a new LED bouncing off the wall through the diffusion, and I also have a 4x floppy that's canopying me in. And that's really cool. And I have a bunch of stands. I'm literally trapped in my office. I can't get out without moving everything.
I have a IKEA desk lamp.
I am envious of your setup. The main thing I'm envious of is your walls. It's dark in there.
Yeah.
I'm doing everything I can to suppress light, but just having white walls all the way around, white walls on the ceiling, white carpet, I can't control light in here.
Should have bought an old house with wood paneling.
Well, I'm hoping some paint will fill
No,
that role.
you need to wood panel your office with the trendy, the little really thin wood panels.
I think we talked about this. I do plan on doing that, but it is a little pricey.
Oh yeah, for sure. But sell another camera.
I'm down to my Mateo. This is all I have, and my iPhone, which is.
I thought we were only shooting on iPhone this year.
You're not suggesting I sell this
No,
camera.
I'm not.
This is the Hypnagogia camera. This is the Hypnagogia setup,
we can't get rid of it.
We can't. I'm sentimental about it. I'm finally sentimental about a camera.
Well, speaking of cameras, intro question for the week. In today's day and age, new or used, is a Red camera worth it?
That is a broad question, my friend.
And okay, that's very broad.
Asking. Yeah, I know why you're asking.
It's very broad. I'll narrow it a bit. For filmmakers of our caliber, right? Where it's a bit of a splurge. It's a bit expensive. Mm-hmm. We don't have some studio head that's just going to throw a wad of cash at our heads yet. Please, somebody. But until then, it's again, filmmakers who are young professionals, indie filmmakers, kind of not starting out yet, not established. Is it worth it? New or used?
Okay, I have two answers. I actually don't know how I feel about it. My first answer is you should, in the year of our Lord 2025, there's only one option, and that is to use your iPhone until you until you can afford an Arri.
Okay.
Nothing else.
So who cares about a Red? The Arri is the top of the line for you?
I'm tired of all the stopgaps because nowadays, I'm seeing shots online, even comparing the iPhone to an Arri, and in certain situations, you can't tell the difference, which is really exciting.
I mean, they used an iPhone for Monkey Man, part of it.
Yeah.
Not the whole thing, but there's some shots that, first of all, I'd be very impressed if they got them with their shoestring budget and just an iPhone. But it's even more impressive because Like that's like a boom shot and everything with like, you're going to have like a bunch of arms and some automation to get that with a camera. And they just like basically had like an iPhone on a stick and they swung it back and forth.
Yeah, yeah. I'm happy to say that we have arrived as far as accessible high quality video goes, and the iPhone really embodies that. So my very radical take is I'm tired of the stopgaps. I'm tired of like the Sony versus Panasonic. And I've kind of seen this trend broadly within the online filmmaker YouTuber space of like people getting a little tired of reading off spec sheets and calling it a review, and also pixel peeping like the differences between a Nikon Z6 Mark III and the new, like, what is it, Panasonic S1R Mark II or whatever. Like, all these cameras are kind of the same. Like, they're so similar. And the feature sets are blending together. It's not like how it was in 2018, where it was like, do you care about full frame and low light performance? Buy an A7S II. Do you care about reliability and image stabilization? Buy a GH5, like, and codecs. It was very obvious. You picked a camera depending on the work you do. And now it's like, okay, do you need a professional video camera with like XLRs and built-in NDs? There's a solution for that. Otherwise, buy basically any mirrorless camera and you're set. Like this S5, $750.
Not bad.
Really cheap. So yeah, just ball out for the most expensive thing if you can. And if you can't, just use the iPhone.
It's an all or nothing.
It's an all or nothing, yeah. But the other part of this question, and I'll try to wrap it up because I'm getting on quite the tangent. I think I texted you a couple of weeks ago with some used Red cameras, like some links to some, and I was like, Reds are really cheap now, and they are. I think if you're a very specific kind of person, I would maybe go for it. And let me give you a quick headline. The Red Komodo, Red by the way, Red Cinema, was bought by Nikon. And they updated some of the newer Red cameras to have the Nikon mount instead of the Canon mount. So now all the older Red cameras, the newer models, but the ones that don't have the Nikon mount, they're trying to get rid of them. Yeah, pre-update. They're trying to get rid of them. And so they slashed the new price of them by like half. So a Red Komodo, which retailed for $6,000, which is crazy for a Red camera. It's super cheap. When it came out, it was like 6K resolution for $6,000, 6K for 6K. It was an exciting thing. Now it's $3,000 new. It's $2,999. That's pretty good.
Like that's the price of a Buick LeSabre.
That's really compelling. And then you can find used ones for even cheaper than that.
Because like if you can get a new one pre-update for $3,000, it's like, well, got to discount it even further.
Yeah, but I don't know what your needs are. Like, if you need a hybrid camera that can take photos and videos, if you need something that's good for run and gun work, maybe don't buy the Red. But if you're kind of in our situation where you're doing narrative projects and you don't care about the long boot up time of a Red camera, and you also have a $4,000 budget and want to buy a dedicated camera solution and not use your iPhone, like, it's a really exciting time. Like, I might get my hands on one if maybe I get a good tax return next year. I don't know, or something. I don't know how I would justify it.
I might hold you to that one. Here's my counterpoint. So Zach actually knows about cameras, so you should trust his opinion. Here's my counterpoint. As somebody who ran a Red camera, I've touched him. I've noodled it about. You know how like in wartime, specifically, I'm pulling this from the Catherine Bigelow movie Jarhead. It's like Jake Gyllenhaal, I'm serious again, his foray into military movies. But there's a bit where he's a sniper and, he's got like this like enemy commander in his sights at this airfield. And it's the war in the desert with Iraq, and he's like ready to get him for Operation Desert Storm. And just as he's about to take the shot, in rushes his the superior officer, which is not realistic because snipers like set up booby traps and stuff, so people don't rush in on them. But in rushes the superior, and he goes, "Don't take the shot." And they're like, "I've got a command." They're all freaking out because they're like, "One bullet, we could get the guy, it'd be great." And he's like, "Watch this." And in come some planes and like bomb the whole like complex, and they like blow it up. And like the snipers, like he's like, I was perfect setup. I was like bare minimum. I was gonna get it with one bullet, and you drop whatever $1 million of bombs just to flatten this airport. And he's like, why would you do that? Like, he's like, come on, man. And the thing is that it's like basically the commanding officer's thing was like, this is going to look so cool when it happens. And so I wrap up that story to tell you Um, is it going to cost more money? Yes, because you can get some really good shots on an iPhone. I've gotten really good shots on an iPhone. I've seen much better shots from Zach on an iPhone than what I got on a Red, right? You should probably save the money and just invest in something that'll actually build your skill. Like just make a film with that $3,000 and keep the phone in your pocket. But at the same time, it would look so cool to run a Red.
Yeah, it is cool for sure. I'm with you completely on that.
And I will say the process running a Red compared to like a DSLR or an iPhone, it just, you're like, oh, this is like a movie camera.
Right.
You're like, this is the camera. Now, Red Mags suck so bad. I hate
We moved away from
Red
them
Mags.
finally. Yeah.
Finally, right? But if you're buying an older Red camera, Red Mags are hard to find, and also I hate them. And also, like I think we had two.
Mm.
We spent too much money on them, but we had two for the project, so
Were
we
they
had
like
to
100 gigs each.
Well, they would have been enough for the project, but the thing is, we had a Red camera, so we were shooting at resolutions that we did not need to shoot at. So we filled those suckers up relatively quickly.
For sure.
So we had a dedicated backup laptop that we would be hot swapping, like swapping a Red Mag, pull the old one, drop it, and of course, like uploading to the computer to back it up was like some insane amount of time as well. We'd just be like, we'd be waiting for the second Red Mag on deck to like finally finish transferring all the footage so that we could swap the new one in, and we were having to like time our breaks so that we had enough time to like swap. I would not suggest it.
Meanwhile, I'm over here with my 1 terabyte iPhone 16 Pro, and I kind of don't have to worry about it too much.
Who cares? Don't have to worry about it. It's, you can, depending on like, how much time you have and whether or not you're paying a lot of money for iCloud, et cetera, you can just upload it to iCloud and you don't even have to worry about it.
Yeah. Kind of.
There are definitely limitations to a Red camera. The fact that even, cheap, they're still very expensive compared to, again, like a $700 Panasonic.
Yeah, which is also crazy.
Yeah, which is also crazy, but like, you're getting good performance out of the Panasonic. You have
and it's full frame, and it boots up right away.
And you don't have to like bolt on all the peripheries that an iPhone requires to make an iPhone like a really good, cinema setup. Like it's there, it's a camera. It's got all the ergonomics already there for the most part. And obviously you have to build it out, but like
we didn't for the feature film though.
We did not. No.
Basically not.
It was a pretty lean setup for the feature film, and that really worked. But
I see your point.
Yeah, I think it's a luxury and it's overkill. But if anything, I love overkill.
Yeah, honestly, the way I see it, and we'll wrap this up because if you get me on another Red camera tangent, it's gonna be
next
the whole
week,
episode.
same time, same bat channel.
But I feel like buying an old like Red DSM-C2 is kind of like buying a classic Porsche. You can get one for a decent deal, but as far as practicality goes, you're only doing that if you're an enthusiast. You're not doing it to like get the job done. And if to use this analogy, getting the job done is just like getting you to work and whatnot. A Camry's probably going to do that better.
Yeah, but a Camry won't feel as good as you do it,
and it's not going to look as cool. So
exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So verdict: it's cool.
Just do it.
Next question. So, we do talk a lot about like cinematic grammar and film language, and I think today's show is really about like what do we mean by that. So Zach and I have some like very slightly different approaches to film language.
Mine is the actual conventional approach, and Mateo's is more philosophical, maybe.
Yeah, I have definitely the writer's idea of film language, and Zach's like, well, I actually shoot things. So film language for Zach is like a much more concrete standard. So without further ado, we'll get into that soon as I ask Zach what inspired you this week.
I will tell you what inspired me right after I tell you what didn't inspire me.
Okay.
So what did not inspire me was the Minecraft movie.
You actually went and saw it?
I did. I took my brother. Emily and I both went, and it I was hoping it was gonna be a so bad it's good movie, and it wasn't even that.
It was just a so bad it's bad.
It was just so vanilla, unfortunately. So
I completely believe that.
yeah, so I don't recommend going and seeing it. I'm sure you've seen the news of just the crazy theaters.
Oh yeah, I was in I went to see Mickey 17, which they canceled the showing and showed Novocaine instead, which we didn't realize till we were inside the theater. Like they like read our ticket and we're like, oh yeah, Mickey 17 is like theater 3 or whatever. So we go down there and then all the trailers play and it's like Novocaine and we're like, what? Why are we here? Which is partially because the Minecraft movie took up more theaters in the multiplex. So they like canceled Mickey 17, which wasn't performing very well, and like shuffled some stuff around. Very weird experience, like going in like expecting Mickey 17 and then getting Novocaine, which is goofy but in fun, and I enjoyed it, but different vibe altogether. But as I go out to ask the manager, hey, did we get the wrong theater for Mickey 17? I'm in the middle of talking and he's like looking at my ticket and he can't actually refund me the money because like it doesn't exist in the schedule anymore. So he's having to like go get like the physical like comp tickets. Hey, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, I get it. It's not your fault. You're not the guy, who's like bamboozling us. But like as he's going through all of this, what the chicken jockey scene happens in the Minecraft theater, in the big IMAX Minecraft, like right across the hall, and I hear like just screaming and children and everything, and they have to send in the cops.
Yeah. So apparently, like theaters have a schedule of when the chicken jockey scene is gonna be. Just so I found this out like not that long ago, just so they can send people in to like make people not go insane. I don't get it. I watched it and was like, this is whatever. This is kind of lame. But yeah, apparently people are really into it.
I guess. I don't know. I saw like it was like sending in the National Guard, like a bunch of sheriff's deputies, like in body armor. I know that they just like wear it around and stuff, but it was like very funny just seeing like instead of mall cops, they have like the actual sheriff go into the theater
swatting the Minecraft movie.
I'm very sure that they like it was over, like they shut it down because the entire theater like came out after that. It was
jeez,
a bizarre. The poor manager was like, "Hey, I'm sorry, there's an emergency right now," and he like runs off and comes back with like a trio of deputies. And I was
so
like,
"Did you get a refund?"
Yeah, I got. Okay, well, I got. He comped me tickets, so I didn't get the money back, but I got. So we bought 4 tickets. And he gave us 8, so I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna complain.
Right.
He was very nice about it, very apologetic, and I'm like, I get it. I'm clearly you have a lot of stuff going on right now.
That's funny, and you have a good story. So
yeah, and I have a good story. Not only did I get Novocaine instead of Mickey 17, but I got to see a small riot form.
That's hilarious. Yeah, so. It wasn't so bad it's good. It was just bad and very vanilla. And the worst part of it all is I have the stupid Lava Chicken song stuck in my head, which is not even a good song. It's like I like Jack Black. Like I actually kind of liked the Mario movie, and his whole Peaches song was great, and I loved that. And I was expecting like an equivalent to that, but like Lava Chicken is just not really scratching that itch. But it's still stuck in my head, so I don't really know what to say about that.
It's had the movie has some sort of lasting impact on your life, I guess. So so that's what didn't.
Yeah.
What did inspire you?
Our film homework inspired me. So I'll hold off on it, but
yeah. I don't want to talk too much about
The
Last Duel.
It really moved me, like legitimately moved me. I was like holding back tears. Like I don't know why. It just really resonated. It was really good. So, we'll talk more about it, but. That movie did things with storytelling that I thought was really creative and really painful. So it was just good. And, it just reminded me why I like cinema. So that's a good reminder to have every so often.
So what inspired me, it's not any specific. Well, okay, I'll say 2 things. I just bought the Girl with a Needle soundtrack, which is like it's a movie that's stuck with me. Like I can't stop thinking about it. Like now months after having watched it. But when I got out of the theater, I was like, the soundtrack is really, really good. I need to find it. It's not on Spotify. It's actually not anywhere. They just released it like a couple weeks ago. And so that's been on repeat. And then I saw that on Bandcamp, they're selling the vinyl, like the pre-orders. And I was like, well, I kind of have to. And it's Bandcamp, so like the artist actually gets money from it versus stuff like Spotify or even, you know, buying a CD from a record company.
Right.
Like this is about as good as you can get as far as funding the artist. So I was
Absolutely.
like,
Yeah.
I have to. So I bought The Girl with the Needle on vinyl. Vinyl's coming sometime in July, but I got the soundtrack, and that's been the soundtrack to my life for a bit. Lots of like industrial ambient, which is really, really good. But as part of that, I've been listening to it while writing, and for some reason, in my this year's feature that I'm writing, I've just really been inspired exactly at midnight.
Like it's unfortunate, but fun at the same time.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I work on international time, so I have to be up early, but I'll put a few pages in every night. You know, I'll be playing a video game or whatever. I'm like, work's burnt me out. I'm tired. I don't want to do anything. And then around midnight, something will click over in my head, and I'll close out the game, and I'm like, who cares?
Dude, that's like the best feeling in the world, because usually, like for a lot of people, they'll be absorbed in like you know, something more recreational, like a video game, and then they kind of like lost their chance to be productive or whatever.
Yeah.
But it sounds like for you, and this like kind of happens for me too, where I'll be doing something that's fun, but not necessarily productive, and I'll just be like, I need to do something like real, and I'll break away, and it feels really good.
It's not even like I don't even have to make myself. It'll just like something will click, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of boring now. I'm gonna go write, and I'll just go write. Like I was playing Art of Rally, great game.
Yeah,
just
I think I put you onto that one.
Yeah, you were like, it's on sale, and I was like, oh well, and you're like, it's $5, and I was like, okay, well, I have to now.
Yeah.
But like I was playing Art of Rally, great game, highly enjoyable. And then I was like, I'm tired of this. I'm gonna write. And like, it just clicked over it. I like midnight. I wrote 30 minutes of writing. Right. I got maybe 2-3 pages in. And then I was like, cool, fantastic. I have yet to get, and I know I'm jinxing myself as I say this, so knock on wood, but like I have yet to get writer's block over a scene or anything, or I've not been stuck on a specific detail when I write at midnight on this project. So I don't know what's going on, but midnight is inspiring me.
Yeah, maybe like you're just tired enough to where like some of those barriers kind of come down, and you're not like holding as much back. Because I know for me, like I second guess every single thing that I would be writing down. I'm like, is that the right direction? Is that the right direction?
Well,
but if you're a little bit tired, maybe you just kind of
I need to coach you on not getting stuck on the little things like that, on right direction.
Yeah.
I have my patented process.
You have your framework.
Yes, I have my framework.
I've got my own frameworks that no one else knows.
And now, the news. The Cranston and Gladstone picture Lone Wolf is apparently over $1 million behind in payments to crew, as what was originally supposed to be an $11 million film ballooned its budget to $13 million. The reasons for this being cited as complicated and various. Your Cousin Who Vapes Too Much has suggested that producers can reach out to unpaid crew members and let them know that they'll get them back next time. This week we saw the announcement of 2 discrete AI-driven film studios. Krelitz and Bianca unveiling their studio Grail, and Fremantle announcing the launching of Imagine Studios. Coincidentally, the Academy has announced that Oscar campaigners must submit a catalog of any changes to the number of fingers their stars have. The Handmaid's Tale has just begun its 6th season, making this 5 years since the show was relevant to the modern day, despite the modern day. And finally, Big Safari Productions and Big Book Media have announced the formation of Cobalt 27, described as a commercially driven film banner. If they manage to pull this off, it'll be the first time in 100 years that someone's figured out how to make money from shooting movies. Thank you for tuning into The News.
So how do you feel about these AI studios?
So, personally, like, I don't really have as much of an issue with AI as many people do. Partially because a lot of people are just like, hey, what if we had like even worse like IP law? That's what we need for AI. And like I I do find like a lot of the arguments against it a little bit of Luddite screaming, which I'm often guilty of, and I'm not a fan of AI in general. But like I'm like, listen, like there are use cases for AI, right? I have worked somewhat extensively for a company that utilizes AI for a lot of stuff, and I interact with it on a daily basis.
I mean, heck, we technically do for the podcast too.
Yeah. For the podcast, technically we do. There's audio stuff. I mean, there's stuff for the film that like little tools that we've used AI for. There are tools you can use, and a lot of times, again, it is like a voice, audio repair, right? Oh, we need like auto ducking, right? But for like more advanced things than just a normal auto duck feature. And I don't have a problem with those, honestly.
For sure.
If they make somebody's job easier, right? It's not putting an audio engineer out of a job, that's for sure. Like I've seen some really good audios like mixing AI, and they're still not as good as just a guy who knows what he's doing, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is a very broad subject, and I don't even like the AI label anyway, because it's like, well, Super Mario 64 has AI enemies. Like, what are we talking about here? But a lot of, when we're talking about AI and like generative AI and like machine learning tools that can help repair audio, for example, those are all kind of newer tools. I don't like differentiating them. It's just software. It's doing what software has always done. But I will say that broadly speaking, I am excited because I think it democratizes filmmaking even more than filmmaking has already been democratized. The vision of the future for me is there was an AI tool. I don't think it ever quite delivered on its promises, which is a trend, unfortunately. But they had some examples of their AI video generator being used on footage that was like recorded for the purpose of being like processed a certain way. And so the workflow would be, I think they were calling it video to video generation. So you take a video that you have and then you can modify it in a certain way. So one of the examples they had was a shot of someone running through a field. Someone went and captured that like we would for one of our film projects.
Yeah, for one of our films.
And then they prompted that shot with their AI to say, set the field on fire. And then they had this crazy shot of everything's on fire and the person's running through a field. That really excites me. And so if these tools can become more reliable, I think that's awesome. There's still issues, and I actually did a video. It might be a little bit outdated at this point, but I did a video on my main channel last year about AI tools, and I had a lot to say about them. And one of the main issues that I'll mention here is that it's hard to be consistent. So for example, like if you're using AI generated tools to generate like a set for yourself, and you want to place the actor in an artificially generated set, that's really cool. But what happens when you flip the camera and then flip it back? Are you going to get the same shot?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, and you'll run into this with like ChatGPT, for example, you have ChatGPT generate something for you, and then you ask it to make one change, and then it makes a whole bunch of micro changes that you didn't technically ask for. So unlike asking a human like you, Mateo, hey, Mateo, can you change this one line in the script? You would just change that one line, but a lot of the times these AI tools, and they're getting better, but they'll just kind of regenerate the whole thing. It's like, well, that's not what I asked for. And then there might be a different change that you want to have made. So it's just like this constant struggle. So at the end of the day, the last thing I'll say is like some of these tools are kind of mainly for people who don't care about the end product as much. But, the vision of the future is that like they can be useful. I don't know if we're quite there yet, unfortunately.
For film particularly, I do worry, like you're talking about the field on fire. I do worry that a lot of it will be like, well, what if we didn't have to pay VFX artists, right?
But at the same time, I think that's fine. Like, stagecoach drivers, and not to be like the AI guy and making all the same arguments, but like, I think that's fine. Like, we don't have to hire focus pullers anymore because we have good autofocus on our cameras. Is that putting like, focus pullers out of a job? It's like, well, okay, like that is natural to some degree. I get that, but when I say that it's being democratized, that's exactly what I mean, because we can't hire a VFX artist.
Yeah.
So it is making it more accessible to people like us.
How do you think, like, with it going to a studio, it's not just like, oh yeah, I'm putting out, field on fire generator to the populace, and then they
I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what an an AI film studio even looks like. I don't know what's different from that to a regular film studio. I have no idea. This doesn't excite me at all.
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
I'm like, I think like if it's like, oh yeah, we're a film studio that has like invests a lot into AI technology, the way like some film studios in the 2000s invested a lot into digital cameras, right?
Yeah.
Like if they're like, yeah, like for example, for the Brutalist got raked over the coals for using AI.
Yeah.
And
they
it's
actually used it in a really tasteful way, I thought.
It was for correct pronunciation, and he used like his own voice. He wasn't stealing anyone's voice, right? And he just like used it so it would say, I forget what language it was, but so in like a non-native language, he would be able to pronounce the word correctly, and it was basically ADR, right?
Yeah.
And
it saved him a lot of time.
Yeah,
and
saved him time.
Steal a job or anything.
Yeah,
like
it didn't
that.
steal a job because again, it's the same audio guy who's actually like going through everything to actually do this and making sure everything's correct. You know, like in Oklahoma, we get a lot of tornadoes, and then we have tornado warnings, and they have back when, at least when I was a kid, they had this like very janky robot voice that it was just a voice generator, and you would just put in your text. It was a text to speech, just like a lot of AI is these days. And like, I wasn't like, oh, this is taking like some newscaster's job, you know, it was just like a thing that could read off the warning for your specific county and you would be okay.
For sure.
Right.
And I do suspect that's what's happening in a lot of cases. Like people who are generating AI art probably weren't the same person, like people to hire an artist anyway. They're just generating like whatever. So I don't know if it's really like, I'm sure there's some overlap, but I don't know how much it's actually taking away from real artists. Because at the end of the day, I think you would, if you have the money, hire someone to do it and do it
again
with that personal touch, you know?
I've been replaced by AI on jobs before, and then they come back and say, hey, can you actually edit this, please? And I'm like, sure thing. You know, I've been like I do know there are cases where there are people that trust way too much in artificial intelligence.
Yeah, they do. They don't read what it generates in a lot of cases.
They don't read what it and then they just don't care, right? They're like, oh, does my like stock footage look weird? Who gives a crap? The audience doesn't seem to give a crap because half of them are pressing skip on the ad after 5 seconds pass. You know, there are people that don't care, and I think they're the problem more than the fact that the technology exists. Because, for example, the biggest thing with AI recently has been like, and poor Miyazaki. I feel so bad for him, but they're doing like Ghibli style, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing with that though, like it feels bad.
Yeah,
and I feel bad when I see people like stealing a style.
But they're just they're just doing memes, you know?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything. I mean, unless you're generating like immigrants being deported in a Studio Ghibli style, that's in terrible taste. But at the end of the day, a lot of this AI stuff feels bad, but I don't know if there's anything like technically morally wrong with it,
other than like really going for the IP law angle, which has its issues.
Sure, but like copywriting styles is really weird though. Like there's no precedent for that.
The only precedent is good old DeviantArt.
Oh, what is that?
There was lots of fan drama back in the day where like, you stole my style, like just people in DeviantArt, like, and I was like, you're both drawing furries. I don't know what the big deal is. There was no big deal. But yeah, like I'm very curious to see if this is just sort of like a vaporware thing where they take the money and run. They're like, we started an AI film studio, and people who invest are like, oh, AI's big right now. That's big, got to be big money. They're disruptors, and then it just ends up being nothing.
There is a lot of that, and I do worry that people are missing the parts of the technology that actually are useful in some cases. But
I see a lot of VFX replacement. I see a lot of bad VFX replacement.
Yeah, I do too.
Honestly, I think the best thing would to be like, hey, AI, generate this like 3D model of like, you know, a room for CGI, and then you just save that and then animate within it as you normally would.
Yeah.
You know, I like it can feel bad. I don't like it. It's cheap. But like they've been making Marvel movies for how many years now? Since 2008. So we are nigh on 20 years of Marvel movies. Like, and by Marvel, I mean like in the Marvel universe.
I
like
got
the
you.
whole, yeah,
Yeah,
you
the
know what I
cinematic
mean.
stuff.
And like some of those have been good, but like I think we've all seen a Marvel movie we came out of like, what? Why did they make that? Why did I go watch this? They're going to put out slop, and this is going to put out slop cheaper, I guess.
Yeah.
Hypothetically,
Yeah, for sure.
Who knows?
Yeah. There's so many directions we can take this. We should honestly just do an AI
Yeah,
episode.
do a whole episode on AI. Let's talk about our actual film homework. The Last Duel almost brought you to tears.
Holy cow, it's so good. I had no expectations for it. I won't spoil much of the movie. We'll do that in a future bonus episode.
In a future episode where we break it down.
Branded spoiler talk, where we just get into the film homework in its entirety. But I guess to speak broadly, what an expertly crafted movie. Like, it was so good. Like, the way it was structured narratively. If you don't know, the story in the movie is told like 3 different times, and you see it from a different character's perspective each time, which on paper could be really bad. Like, if I did that, it would just be really boring because you'd be watching the same thing 3 times. But the way that they like shifted the focus in each of these retellings of the same story was just masterfully done. Not only that, but like the performances were very different in some cases and just subtly different in other cases. And so, yeah, it was just really interesting. And you get a little taste of the character's self-concept too, because and at least the first 2 tellings of the story from 2 different characters' perspectives, they do view themselves more highly than the other characters see them. And so, it's just so well done. It's so well directed, is what I'll say.
It reminds me of The Bamboo Grove, which is a story. It's a Japanese classic literature where, like, basically it's like a knight, a woman, and a bandit. They go into a bamboo grove. Stuff happens. They all end up dead, if I recall correctly. In some tellings, the woman doesn't. But it's like they all have kind of different conflicting stories. Sometimes there's a ghost that kind of comes in and also tells his own story.
I think I've heard of this.
I think I've probably told you about it because I've been obsessed with it since I got it in World Lit. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. But it's like, again, like these 3 different retellings of the same events and the way that they kind of warp. Before we kind of get any further into it, first of all, Matt Damon looks like he knows what an email is.
What do you mean?
He's just like, okay, so there's 3 main guys. Well, there's 2 main guys in this, but then there's a third guy, and he's played by Ben Affleck, and he's kind of like the vassal, kind of the lord of the area.
Yeah.
And there's Adam Driver, there's Matt Damon, and there's Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck looks like Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit. They dyed his hair blonde. He's he like slimmed out for the role. He's not like as muscly as he normally is. It's bizarre. I was like, oh, that's Ben Affleck, like about halfway through the movie. And he's a minor character, so he doesn't show up all the time, but he's in there enough. But Adam Driver still has like a bit of a modern feel to him as just a character. This was a movie that was done in a very like I'm going to show you like a fresh take on the medieval France, right? This medieval period where you're like, oh, these are actual people. They're doing actual politics. They're not just kind of these like, ho, look at me. I'm going to use big fancy Shakespearean language. They still use that language, but it's very toned in like a modern politics way.
Yeah.
And again, like this was supposed to come out in 2020, so it has a bit of a hashtag Me Too story angle to it.
I can see that.
That he's putting this into a medieval France narrative, and like this is on purpose. But you have Adam Driver doing, he's a very accomplished theater actor. He's doing like, I'm a Shakespearean guy, and I am playing like a Shakespearean character. I'm playing a medieval character, like as you would. Like he feels like I'm watching him on stage, and I know that he's not I know that he's not a medieval knight because he's like an actor, but like he's doing a very good job at like portraying this.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Matt Damon is like, he's like, I am doing like a very modern, he has a very modern face and everything. He's got the bowl cut and the, you know, the terrible haircut and everything, but he's like, I am doing like a very like kind of by the books. Yeah, I'm this like, I'm a real medieval knight. And yeah, and it doesn't, sometimes I'm like, you know what an email is. You've sent an email before. You have an iPhone in your back pocket.
It could just be like we're used to seeing their faces.
And we're used to seeing him, but it's like he has like a very modern face. Part of that is the fact that like everybody in Hollywood has veneers. Everybody has, you know, surgeries now, so they don't look as authentically old-timey or whatever, but he does a really, really good job. But I can tell like I'm like seeing sort of like a kind of a modern brutish guy do a medieval character where he's like, I'm just doing a guy who just happens to be in medieval France. So like you see him like beating up people kind of Jason Bourne style on the battlefield, and it's super brutal, really well done scene.
Oh my gosh. It's a pretty violent movie.
Yeah, very violent movie. But I was like, yeah, like he's doing the, I get teleported to, you know, me as Mateo, as the audience, we get teleported to the battlefield and we're seeing this happen. There's not the sort of like the fourth wall of the stage that Adam Driver's operating with. And then Ben Affleck is operating sort of like a sleazy nightclub owner who just happens to be a medieval lord. Like he's just very modern and doing the modern politics take.
He's probably the most modern of them all, I think.
And they're playing like all at the same time, sometimes in the same room, playing these like different takes on what a modern medieval take is.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to me.
I personally didn't get that impression, but I think for me, the way I like to watch movies is ideally don't watch the trailer, because I find that the trailer gives you enough of an idea of what the plot is, and it gives you enough of a framework to where when you're watching it, you're not entirely wondering what's going to happen next because you have an idea of vaguely what it's about.
Yes, there's been something from the third act has shown up in the trailer, so now you're like, when are we going to see the third act?
Right. It just kind of spoils it, and I think what that does is it allows you to kind of, you know, look at those things like maybe this character is acting a little too modern for this 13th century movie or 12th century movie. And for me, I didn't get that impression, but I think I just like I'm just so engrossed because I feel like I'm experiencing this story very authentically because I just have no and maybe you didn't watch the trailer either.
I didn't watch the trailer, but I had more of an awareness of the film for sure.
For sure. And I think the other thing for me is the way I like to watch movies is like we can all watch a horror movie where we just kind of cross our arms and tell ourselves like this isn't scary, and then guess what, like the movie doesn't end up being scary because you put all these guards up, and you know, good for you, I guess. But for me, the way I like to watch movies is I let every single guard down. Like my critical mind just dies.
You suspend that disbelief hard.
I suspend it hard, and I find that increases my enjoyability of movies. I also let my guard down more when I'm watching movies by myself, which is why I maybe get a little bit more like emotionally affected by things, which is also a fun way to watch movies, is just to be like,
no, I love watching. I went and saw The Girl with the Needle by myself. I mean, I meant to see it with a friend, but then he couldn't make it, so it was just me, and I was like, oh, this is fine. In fact, I enjoyed it a lot more, just kind of being isolated in a theater full of people.
I used to feel like that was a very lonely thing to do, but I get the appeal completely. I need to do that more, frankly. But
yeah, I liked the movie. I think this might be where I describe Ridley Scott's sort of quality fluctuation. Ridley Scott as a director, I really like. He's a good director. I mean, he did Black Hawk Down, he did Alien. Like,
did he do Gladiator?
Yes, he did Gladiator, which you can tell there's a lot of the Gladiator in this. But he's a guy he'll have like a run, sometimes like 5 or 6 movies that are really good, and then he'll just start putting out flops. This was I believe, financial flop. And people were saying it was a creative flop. I don't believe it's a creative flop. I thought it was actually a very well put together film. I think when it came out being 2021, Me Too was too close. People were like, why are you doing this?
And on that note, like without spoiling, maybe we'll spoil it in spoiler talk, but
Yeah.
it was a hard movie to
Oh,
watch
yeah.
at
I was like,
times.
oh, that's.
Also, like the story being told multiple times, sometimes you re-experience certain moments
Mhm.
multiple times, and that's
Yeah.
hard too.
Yeah.
And then you view it from different characters' perspectives, which and they heighten the ante,
Yeah.
emotionally because it's from they're different characters are experiencing certain moments differently, and then it's even harder and worse. So, it's I could see it not resonating with people maybe during that time,
Yeah.
but honestly, I feel like it would still be a problem
No, I
today.
think even now, I know people that would be so pissed off by this movie.
Yeah.
Um,
For me, I didn't necessarily view it in the Me Too like in like through that lens as much. Like for me, there was this theme of do you do the thing that puts you at risk even if you're like in the right? Like how far will you go
mhm.
to be right?
Yeah.
Because Matt Damon's character in a lot of ways like a lot of kind of unjust things happen to him from his perspective. And it's
Mhm.
obviously more complicated than that, but he feels like he has this righteous like anger of like I can react this way because I've been wronged.
Yeah.
But we see where that gets him. Like it doesn't make him very popular and it's
Mhm.
actually kind of sabotaging his success in a
Yeah.
lot of ways and people don't like him and it's making him unlikable. And I'm like, damn, like I can kind of see myself in him in some ways because I've been that person who like, bad things happen and I feel like I can like I'm justified in talking about them and making a big deal out of them, but then that hurts me in other ways. And so there's like this weird balance of like when do you stay quiet? When do you speak up? Is it worth
Mhm.
ever speaking up about certain things? And then obviously that manifests in more personal ways too. But
Yeah.
it was interesting. And then like with the like Matt Damon's mother, her character, she was raped basically.
Yeah. I mean, she very much says that exact same thing.
Yeah, she was like, I was and I didn't say anything about it. I just did what was right for my family because it would have
Mhm.
been bad for my family if they found out, especially in 12th century France or
Yeah.
whatever. And then like because the female character what was her name, Margaret,
I believe.
started with an M, but she like confesses like this bad thing happened to her, and then everything gets put on the line in the last
Mhm.
scene of the movie. Like the stakes are as high as they could possibly be, and you just see her guilt of like I should have just stayed quiet about this because like this is
Yeah,
bad. This is really bad.
again like it's such a again with the Me Too angle of it. Like that's the whole thing where it's like, do people don't believe her?
Hmm.
Should she have spoken up? And then there's the one person who is actually going to bat for her. Like he's not even doing it for her. He's doing it out of his own
Pride.
pride, his own thing. I thought that was like it was a very well like very honestly pretty not the most sensitive. There are
Right.
scenes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like a very like sophisticated and sensitive take on it that
Hmm.
I think people kind of were like, "Oh, he's doing medieval Me Too. I don't care about this," and didn't go watch it.
Mm. Might have been more of a marketing issue because with me having no like
Yeah.
expectations, I thought it was a fantastic movie. I
Really
mean,
good movie, really well shot, obviously. It's Ridley
mhm.
Scott. Um
What was, and this is a huge compliment. I didn't think about the cinematography once, which is to say, I was very engrossed in it.
I thought about it a couple of times. First of all, because there's the scene where it's a pitched battle scene, and he's just freaking like going to town Jason Bourne style on knights, and it's really well done.
Hmm.
And I was like, ooh, that's a nice cinematic shot of like gore.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's the fact, I think it was like the scene where the accusation first comes out.
Mm.
And I'm like, they're just lighting this all in like kind of might as well be a black and white film because it's just all just kind of muted grays and blues that it's so bleak and annoyingly
Hmm.
like dark, which is
I
the point.
I
But I
do
was
take it
like,
back. I take it back. I thought about the cinematography 3 times. Okay.
okay,
So the first time it was like the flash forward in the first scene where you see I'm gonna just say her name's Margaret. I don't think that's her
mhm,
name, or Marionette, or is Mary. Yeah, I don't remember what her name is. Can't pronounce French names anyway. But she's like getting ready at the beginning of the movie, and I was just like, I don't know what the movie's about yet.
mhm,
There's nothing that like hooked me immediately, so I was like kind of looking around, like that's nice, I when I get bored, I think about the cinematography. So that was the first time. And then obviously things get really interesting after that. The second time was the first battle scene. I was like, how did they do this? This is so crazy.
It was so good.
But
nobody's doing stuff at that scale anymore.
Yeah. The extent of my cinematography analysis was just, how did they do this? How can I do something like this? Because this is crazy. And then the third time was during the trial, one of the trial scenes where there was like the candle lighting everywhere.
Mhm.
I'm like, this is very Barry Lyndon. This is really cool. And I was like, well, maybe they lit it only with candle lights. And then I looked at the depth of field. Then I was like, no, probably not, because it's not shallow enough for
Mhm.
that to like work like it did in Barry Lyndon, for example. Then I was like, no, wait a second. Modern cameras are really sensitive, so you could get that look with candle lighting. And then I got swept away in the story again.
This is what happens in Zach's brain constantly.
Yeah.
I'm just really glad that this wasn't a flop, because Ridley Scott's very close to being in his flop era again. I recall Napoleon not being very good. I haven't seen it. I need to actually watch it, but I remember everybody who I trust who's seen it has had kind of lukewarm reviews of it. And then now I'm hearing that Gladiator 2 was good, so maybe we're back.
I need to see that.
But
I need to rewatch the first one too.
He is a man who fluctuates, and I'm just kind of fingers crossed that this is a hit. His next, whatever his next film after Gladiator 2 is a hit, because then Napoleon was just a blip, and we're back. We'll see.
We'll see.
Black Hawk Down was good. It's kind of a weird film because of when it came out, but it's certainly a good one.
What year was that?
I think it was 2003. It's a post 9/11 movie.
Gotcha. My dad painted the plane for it.
Wait, really?
Yeah, because he painted planes like briefly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Actually, a little fun fact. I forgot about that.
That's your personal, whatever. You're like 4 degrees of Ridley Scott there.
Like, that's like 2.
Yeah, 2 degrees. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe 3.
I was thinking like art director, cinematographer, Ridley Scott, or something like that.
Yeah. 4 at least. 4 is a conservative
at least 4.
guess.
Or at the most 4, maybe. I don't know. I'm too tired to do math right now. That was our film homework section. So, cinematic grammar, cinematic language. We have two very different kind of like approaches to this.
Before we get into it, explain how you view what these two different approaches are.
Okay, so cinematic language, to be clear, is like the way you use shots to communicate, basically. And again, like that could be camera movement, that can be lighting, that can be angle. Everything that is the visual language, right? And so my view of cinematic language, cinematic grammar, is it is basically something you use to set motifs that then allow you to communicate ideas to the viewer by using like a repetition, right? The villain always shot from this like Dutch angle or whatever, and then whenever like in the end of Twin Peaks, the camera does the thing that it always does when you look at Bob, and you know that Dale Cooper has been possessed by Bob, and that's the end of Twin Peaks season 2, right? Rosebud is a sled, etc., etc. But like you use that to signal to the viewer without them ever having to like have somebody tell them, right? It's telling them without telling them. You don't even have to use a musical sting. It's a lot like using like music and leitmotifs. Here's the villain theme. Well, here's the villain's lighting, and so if you, my kind of theory of cinematic language is you take all of that, you set it at the beginning of the film. I would say the first act or the first
establish
third.
it.
Yeah, you establish it, you set it, the audience understands, when you hear dun 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 dun, Vader walks on screen. When you have this angle, when you have this lighting, when you have this camera movement, when you have everything, it can be really subtle, but it'll bring it to them and it'll show them. The top in Inception, they do that with the top in Inception.
Yeah, it sets an expectation.
Yeah, it sets an expectation, but also the way they shoot it, right?
Does it keep spinning? Does it fall over?
Does it keep spinning? Does it just fall? Yeah, but like, how long they decide to hold on it, how the way they move around it, you can kind of tell.
Yeah. So to use that example, like what is the film language in the top scene? Like if they chose to hold on it longer, what does that communicate? Because just kind of what it sounds like, you're describing like visual motifs.
Yeah.
In some cases, they're auditory motifs, but they're contextual motifs.
Yeah, you have to contextualize it.
Using the tools that like film has at its disposal, whether it's audio or visuals. That's basically everything falls into those two categories. But I can see that from like a motif standpoint, but like you kind of threw a lot out there in the end. So like,
okay, so with the top, right?
Yeah.
What are they trying to communicate with the top? Because the bit is that the top always spins in the dream and it falls over in real life because dream versus real life. And then you're like, did Cobb in Inception, did he actually just like create a world that he can live in forever in the dream where he's with his kids? Or did he actually get to go see his kids? And we don't know, right? Because the tops keep spinning. But at the beginning, the camera will kind of focus on the top, and then it'll topple over or won't, right? And then here, it just stays on the top. Like, it doesn't move around. It's just like, I mean, it does get closer to the top, but like, It doesn't like, we're not panning around. We're standing very steady on the top. And this has set, like, from everything else that it's shown us with the top, it said us that this is the most important time to pay attention to the top. And then it cuts and you're like, oh, well, you're telling me, and then you leave me like ambiguous in that he's using that cinematic grammar that he set up through the entire film of, I'm showing you the top, I'm kind of zooming in on it, I've got this motif of like showing it tipping over or not, and then here I go, I don't give you that satisfaction, you have to figure it out yourself. And he's saying something with that, right?
So he sets an expectation and then he subverts it.
And of course,
a visual motif.
Yeah. And everybody's like, well, the top is actually Mal's totem. The top is not Cobb's totem. Cobb's actual totem is his wedding ring. That's like the little bit. That's the guy that actually wants to know how it ends, and he Googles ending explained, right? The wedding ring is his totem. He's the only one that knows what the wedding ring feels like. And like that's his actual, like, you have to pay attention to whether or not the wedding ring's on his hand to know if it's a dream or not. And like, yeah, I get it. But what is Nolan saying with that cinematic grammar with the top? Right? He's saying, does it matter?
Yeah.
He's saying, you have to figure it out for yourself. He's saying, what do you believe? Right? The answer is there. The answer is literally on his ring finger, right? Or rather on or off, depending on the scene, right?
Yeah. Yeah, one insight that like I've had with regards to endings like that, it, like you just said, is doesn't matter at all. Does that answer actually matters? It sounds like in this case the answer might be maybe.
The answer is maybe.
Maybe it's like what you're saying of like maybe rewatch the film and like figure it out. Like, there's an actual answer there. For me personally, the way I like to view that is more of a, actually, if you're super focused on the answer, you're missing something else.
Exactly. That's the thing. You're missing the...
But it's not the wedding ring. It's something thematic. You're missing a point. That clearly isn't the emphasis, because if it was, I would have told you. So,
yeah, if it was the wedding ring, we would have gotten shots of the wedding ring too.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm saying. Like, it cuts on the top because the theme isn't a theme of does he actually get to be with his kids. The theme is him letting go. The theme is like what it's like to kind of be this kind of, like, you can just kind of be immortal for a while in your brain, technically, and the way that warps people. Like, it's exploring a lot of stuff, and it's like, you don't need to pay attention to the wedding ring. There is an answer to whether or not he's with his kids. I believe the answer is he actually is with his kids. But that's not what you need to worry about. You need to pay attention to the movie, not to like little nerd details about wedding rings.
For sure. Yeah, that's really good. I think it's a good thing to think about, like, how can you in your own personal projects find ways to we all know what leitmotifs are. Like, we all, like, thematically, we all know, like, what is a motif in music, like when it comes back in, and it means something. But visual motifs, finding ways to incorporate those into your projects, I think is a really, I don't know, that's a fun idea. I'm going to have to think about how to do that for my next project.
I mean, Wes Anderson does it a lot. He does it especially a lot of Wes Anderson and also Tarantino,
Hmm.
they'll pull from other media's established cinematic motifs and they'll reuse them for their films because that is a built-in, like, it's burned into everybody's brains that they're, or at least film nerds' brains, that like this comes from another movie, there's a reference here. And it's like it's really easy, like they have this cinematic grammar that somebody else has built for them.
Hmm.
For example, I'm sure in my own films, whenever I can like put rigs on cars, I'm gonna have the Mandy headlights shot in one of my films, just
Hmm.
because that is a really handy cinematic grammar for communicating an emotion and an intensity to a car driving shot
Hmm.
that like not a lot of other people just like had, like, but people understand it immediately because it's been in other movies.
Sure. So that being said, so you're kind of viewing film language from more of like a, you know, almost like storytelling standpoint,
Yeah,
but looking
it's
less
like
at
show
the
don't tell, but you can also tell by showing.
sure, but less of the mechanics of
Yeah.
what's necessarily happening there from like a filmmaker's perspective. Am I getting
So
that right?
yeah, and I'm gonna toss it to you because I do know that your theory is one
But
of.
before I do that, how would you describe, like you kind of went over your own views
Mhm.
on cinematic grammar. How would you describe what mine are? And then maybe I can clear up any misconceptions and then ramble about
Yours is
many
still
things.
cinematic grammar. Like it's again, you're taking those motifs and you're like, how do I set up a scene to communicate ideas? Because that's what a cinematic grammar is. It's visuals that to using visuals in a certain order to communicate ideas. Just like I forget, Russian guy, forgetting the name, with the montage, right? Guy, neutral expression, looking at baby, neutral expression, looking at food. It's always the same shot of the guy with a neutral expression, but each thing he looks at.
Yeah. Depending on the connotation of the
Yeah,
thing, it
yeah,
changes how you view that scene.
exactly.
Yeah.
So shots in relationship to each other, there's a grammar that's filled. There's a structure
Hmm.
that you can fulfill there. Um, so like what you do is still that you just go much more granular. So I'm talking about like sometime in the first act, first third of the film, you should kind of get all these like shots together. And for you, you are breaking it down scene by scene.
Shot by
Yeah,
shot.
shot by shot, scene by
Yeah.
scene. You are putting it together, and you're like, here's a build up, here's a payoff. Here, I'm going to use this cinematic technique to then achieve this.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's fair. So the way I viewed kind of like what you were saying is more of like you establish a rhythm and you set expectations and then you use that to kind of pull out certain effects and feelings and meanings later on in the film. So
Mm-hmm.
your thing is all about you're almost talking more about film language from a stylistic standpoint of
Yes,
like
absolutely.
which is cool. Well, I haven't really viewed it that way. For me, film language is I'll just start from the beginning, right? Film language. This is broadly how I view it. So within the world of cinema, unlike the real world, there's an objective truth that it, the only objectively true things that happen in a movie are what you see on camera. Nothing else exists at all. So for example, in The Last Duel, an insight that I had while watching it, they were saying they were accusing the woman of maybe having another partner. And that's why she got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we know for a fact that that did not happen. You know why we know for a fact that didn't happen? Because we didn't see it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now in real life, that's an open possibility.
Yeah.
You have to say, oh, well, that's technically possible because your perspective is, here.
Yeah.
And then there's all these other experiences from other people and other creatures happening all over the place. And those things are actually happening as far as I'm aware. When I turn around, the world that I was looking at doesn't disappear, right? But in movies, it does. It
Yeah.
literally does. What you see is what's canon, period. And so within the world of juxtaposition and specifically like sequencing shots. So this shot happens, this shot happens, this shot happens. What you're doing is you're choosing what to emphasize in each shot and you just kind of describe the Kuleshov effect where the connotation
Kuleshov.
the connotation of the thing that you're looking at determines how you feel about it within a sequence that on its own has shots that don't mean anything. So neutral expression looks at food, you feel like that person's like happy about seeing the food. Neutral expression, seeing someone get murdered. You have this idea that he's scared, even though it's just a neutral expression. So obviously, like within what you emphasize and what you choose to show and what's canon within the world of the story, the feeling that you get about the shots and what's actually happening there is determined by it's almost a sort of like, it's not, I think there's a type of bias called like normalcy bias. So it's like the more normal something seems, like the less attention you tend to give it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a weird bias that we seem to have with regards to the order that information is consumed. And so what you're doing within the world of film language is that you're leveraging how people feel about earlier things versus like later things. That's kind of my theory. I'm developing that on the spot. So,
Yeah.
if this doesn't make sense, then let me know. But film language is about choosing what to emphasize and choosing the order that you emphasize it, because the order through that juxtaposition can influence the meaning as well. And so that's just something that's broadly how I view film language. And there's more technical things. There's things to know about like how to leverage that best. But that's kind of my like broad perspective of what's happening and what film language is even about. But you seem to be talking about it more from a like setting up expectations, landing on a consistent style. For example, like the color red. I'm about to end, I swear to God. The color red can mean two things. It can mean danger or it can mean passion. If you're writing a movie about love, maybe your film language and the way that you're talking about it is you're showing red and you're establishing that it means passion, not danger. So that's what film language is for you. So you're using film language, you're setting expectations with the color red, and then maybe later in the movie you can subvert those expectations or use those expectations to arrive at like a maybe profound meaning in some regards. I'm not clever enough to come up with an example on the spot, but that's kind of what you're talking about from more of a stylistic perspective. It's like Wes Anderson has a film language when he chooses to center frame things and direct actors a certain way and write in a certain style. He has his own film language there. But I'm talking more from a technical, like Kuleshov effects and sequencing and emphasizing certain things. So that's kind of how I see it. I just felt like
that emphasis I think is where we cross over the most. There's a movie, Gaspar Noé's Climax, which is a trip of a movie. It's about a dance troupe trapped inside during a snowstorm and somebody spikes the punch bowl with LSD. Really good movie. Very nightmarish in a psychedelic way. But in it, it's got this like film language where like everybody's talking, there'll just be these random jump cuts, like within the scene. Like it's like the conversation keeps going. There's just like a random like frame of black, really weird. And you're like, oh, okay, this is communicating something.
Yeah.
And then the film about whenever the LSD gets spiked into the bowls, everything just becomes one long meandering shot. Like they hide the cuts, but it's a 1917 style one take, which is really impressive.
It's like Hitchcock's The Rope.
Yeah, very much like Hitchcock's The Rope, especially with the small enclosed space that they're doing everything in, so they can kind of wander from room to room and then back, and then if something else is happening. Hid the cuts really well too. There were only a few spots where I'm like, they definitely hit a cut in there. But as part of that, there's towards the end of the film, and this is their juxtaposition, there's this especially nightmarish time where it's still technically a one shot, but there's a strobe, so it's simulating the cuts. And you have from the opening, which is just a bunch of people talking to each other, and there's the jump cuts. And then here there's like dead people, and there's people writhing on the ground in LSD, and it's like this kind of crazy meltdown of the entire scene we saw before. And we're getting those jumps to remind us of the time before when everybody was more or less normal and more or less liked each other, versus now when they're eating each other's faces, sometimes literally. And it's like that film language. He sets that up, and now he's using it to make us think about that juxtaposition with only like the actual move, like an edit, a camera movement, and it's like they didn't have to use it's very narrative and it's very thematic without making us really do anything other than experience the film that we'd already be experiencing without these specific stylistic quirks.
Yeah, gotcha. And what's just to kind of add to your point a little bit, if they had chosen to do those like black inner frames later in the movie without having established that earlier, you'd be like super confused and it probably wouldn't have worked. So
yeah, it would have been like, oh, that's odd. Oh yeah, this is like a crazy psychedelic film. I get it. Initially, there's an earlier film of his, Love, which is famous because the sex scenes in it are unsimulated. And it has a bunch of these jump cuts because they are unsimulated, so there's not you can't necessarily reset from real stuff happening in this context. So they had these jumps so that, whatever, an hour or two later, whenever they were ready to restart and everybody was, fresh as a daisy, they could just kind of cut into where they needed to be. Because the takes would take too long to just redo it until you get one long continuous take. So I was like, oh, that's just become a stylistic quirk of his. And then to see it go away and then come back and like in climax, I was like, oh, I see. He's using that from what just feels like a stylistic quirk at the beginning to like now it's a mnemonic device that like brings us back to when everybody's just drinking punch together at the beginning and they're kind of laughing and joking for the most part, to now where they're like tossing each other out into the cold to freeze to death and they're like contorting themselves on the dance floor and pitch in like this red nightmarish scene. The camera's also upside down for this entire sequence, so it's like even more like hellish and completely discombobulating.
Yeah,
but there's
also like you're looking into it.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's like would it be less crazy without the jump cut to remind us of where we were initially? Like, no, but it's such an elegant
helps.
piece of film language that it does it without me thinking, oh yeah, I remember the beginning. I'm just like, oh, he's doing that Strobin cuts again. But like the kind of the awkward, jarring jump cut suddenly gets you, and you're like,
Gotcha.
oh, I see.
Yeah, it kind of amplifies it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really
more
cool.
More than just showing us like a flashback to an hour before or whatever, where everybody's cool. It's giving us a flashback without a flashback.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's really interesting. Like that's a good way to look at it, I think. Pat yourself on the back for that one.
Thank you.
Hey, we know stuff about film.
Yeah, we know stuff about movies. This has been Cinematic Grammar. Is there anything else you want to add, Zach, before we wrap it up?
No, definitely not. If I wanted to, it would be another very long segment because I've kind of established my own frameworks around, and I wouldn't say I've implemented them fully, but I've at least developed them. I'll tell you what they are, but I won't tell you about them. I have oh no, I'm blanking.
I hate when that happens.
I call it the 2-stage cinematic formula. So that's the cycle of setups and payoffs that I've talked about in past episodes. And then the other one is the vehicles of visual storytelling. So essentially it just describes like what are the different ways that you can convey information within the world of film, and then how do you select which one to tell your story in a given scenario. So those are my frameworks that have to do with visual storytelling and film language, but I'll save that for another time.
All right. Well, this has been Your Next Film. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it as always. If you have a short film that you want us to look at and review, that's a little bit harsh.
Let's review. Yeah,
talk about, review, discuss on the episode. We'll have a link in the description below. Make sure to send us your stuff. Love to see it. Love to kind of have that artistic dialogue where it's not just Zach and I talking to each other about red cameras. Even though I deeply enjoy that.
Yeah, we definitely want to kind of bring you guys into this world a little bit so we can all kind of learn from each other.
This is, after all, for creatives by creatives. So.
Yeah, and also like we think it's important to learn from the experts, which is why we do our film homework, but also we want to learn from each other. And so if you're a new viewer watching this several weeks ago, and we've done this multiple times, but we like to review shorts that were submitted by us and we break them down. It's super fun. We'd like to do that for you too. Do what Mateo said.
Yeah, do what I said.
Don't make him angry.
You won't like me when I'm angry. Film homework. Speaking of, this week's film homework, I'm thinking on Sing Sing. I'll let you, Zach. I'm not gonna give you any expectations for
Thank
it.
Thank you.
Sing Sing 2023. Really good film. It was up for an Oscar this year. I'll give you that expectation.
Tell us who the director is and what the genre is.
Director and genre.
Just so people have, some idea of what we're talking about. But I appreciate you letting me go in blind.
Okay, so it's directed by Greg Quidar, and the genre is prison drama.
Cool. That's all you need to know.
So I want to talk more about it, but I've promised to keep that under wraps.
So we're gonna do our film homework. We suggest you do your
come
film
along
homework
to talk about it with us.
Yeah.
If you did last week's film homework and you watched The Last Duel, let us know your thoughts on it. We kind of had a variety of takes on it, so I'm interested to see what you, the audience, thinks of this as well. If you didn't watch it, go watch it and then tell us if we're wrong.
Yeah, we do deduct 10 points from your total grade if your homework is late, but you're free to do it late.
Yeah, you're free to do it late. We understand some of you are catching up.
It's okay. I've got my list of movies that I'm behind on too.
I've got such a list. I'm honestly using this film homework to urge myself to actually get some of this done.
Yeah, it's a good excuse to. Well, with all of that out of the way, thank you so much for tuning in to Your Next Film. If you haven't already, subscribe.
You should subscribe for more talks on we will do eventually probably an entire episode on whether or not the red camera is relevant, or the RE, or a third secret camera that I don't know about, but Zach totally does.
Venice.
I've been your host, Mateo Guthrie.
And I've been your host, Zachary Koch.
Thank you for listening. This has been Your Next Film. Go make a movie.